A 12-year-old boy walks into a bank to deposit his birthday money. What should have been a proud moment turns humiliating until his mother walks in and changes everything without raising her voice. Tyrese Porter wasn't the kind of kid who usually got nervous. He was quick with a joke, fast on the court, and smart enough to keep up with kids 2 grades above. But this morning, his hands felt clammy, and his breath came short as he looked up at the wide glass doors of Crestmark Bank on Fremont Avenue in Tempe, Arizona. He'd just turned 12, and this was his first solo deposit. The envelope in his hoodie pocket had exactly $220 inside. Birthday cash, 5s, 10s, a couple 20s. Nothing crazy. But to him, it was the result of months of "you better save that" from Aunt Claudine, Uncle Leo, and his big cousin Ronell, who worked night shifts at the auto shop. His mom, Dr. Alicia Monroe, had driven him here but stayed in the car, giving him one last bit of advice through the rolled-down window. "You've got this, baby. Walk in there like you belong, because you do." He nodded and tried to hide the shake in his knees. The sun beat down strong for mid-morning. His sneakers, still dusty from a pickup game the night before, squeaked a little on the floor as he stepped inside. The bank was quiet. Not empty, but quiet in that slow Saturday kind of way. A man in a button-down shirt stood at the kiosk checking his phone. An older couple sat in the waiting chairs, whispering about some paperwork. The line at the counter had just one woman in it. She was signing something, her toddler chewing on the edge of a deposit slip beside her. Tyrese took his place behind her and tried to breathe normal. He looked down at the envelope, double-checking his handwriting on the outside. T. Porter, Savings. He'd practiced his signature 3 times the night before, not because anyone asked him to, but because it felt like the right thing to do. He watched the digital cue board flick to the next number. The woman and her toddler left. The bank teller didn't even look up as she said, "Next." Tyrese stepped forward. "Hi," he said, polite and firm like his mum taught him. "I'm here to deposit into my savings." The teller raised her eyes, slow. Her name tag read Margaret Delaney. She looked maybe in her late 50s, with silver-streaked brown hair and a tight-lipped expression that didn't shift much. She didn't smile, didn't greet him back. Instead, her gaze dropped straight to the envelope in his hand. "And where'd you get that kind of money?" she asked. Tyrese blinked. He wasn't sure if he'd heard her right. "It's my birthday money," he said, lifting the envelope a little. "My aunt and my cousin gave it to me. I just wanted to put it in—" "Uh-huh," she said, cutting him off. She leaned forward over the counter, eyeing the bills like they were something suspicious. "Do you have a state-issued ID on you?" Tyrese hesitated. "No, Mom. Just my school ID and my account number. My mom opened it with me last summer." Margaret let out a slow breath through her nose. The kind adults do when they're already tired of dealing with you. She turned slightly to glance toward a nearby colleague, then back to Tyrese. "Well, I'm going to need to verify all of this," she said. "You could be anyone. And this could be anything." Tyrese's chest tightened. He looked down at the envelope again, as if it might have somehow changed since he walked in. But it was still just an envelope. Still his name. Still the money he'd been given. Fair and square. "I can give you the account number," he said. His voice was still calm, but softer now. Margaret didn't respond. Instead, she turned to pick up the phone next to her station. "I'm calling the manager to assist. Just wait." The man at the kiosk had now turned to look. The older couple whispered something, eyes shifting toward the boy at the counter. Tyrese felt his ears burn, and he tried not to look up. He reached into his backpack for the small blue bank booklet his mom had given him. Maybe that would help. But Margaret wasn't watching him anymore. She was talking to someone on the phone, glancing his way, lips tight. Tyrese swallowed hard. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. But the moment she hung up that phone, everything started to unravel faster than he could keep up. Margaret set the phone down with a soft click and gave Tyrese a pointed look, like she was sizing him up for something he hadn't signed up for. "Someone will be with you in a minute," she said curtly, then turned her attention to her computer screen, her fingers tapping as if he'd vanished from her view entirely. Tyrese stood there, unsure whether to say something or just wait. He glanced down at the envelope again. It wasn't shaking, but his hands felt stiff now, like they didn't quite belong to him. The lobby felt colder, not in temperature, just in mood. Like the energy shifted when she asked that first question. The man from the kiosk was still watching. So was one of the tellers a few windows down. No one said anything, but their eyes kept doing that thing, sliding away quickly whenever Tyrese looked up. A tall man in a dark grey tie came out from a hallway behind the counter. His name tag read, Kenneth Flores, branch manager. He approached slowly, not unfriendly, but with that cautious customer service face that never really showed what someone was thinking. "Hi there," Kenneth said. "You're trying to make a deposit?" Tyrese nodded. "Yes, sir. Into my savings account." "He says it's birthday money," Margaret chimed in from her desk without looking up. Kenneth gave her a brief glance, then turned back to Tyrese. "Do you have an account number on you?" Tyrese handed over the small blue booklet and the slip with his account info. Kenneth took it and began typing into a tablet. "I don't have a state ID," Tyrese added, voice smaller now. "Just school. I'm 12. Kenneth paused for half a second. 12, huh? And you came in by yourself?" "Yes, sir. My mom's outside." Kenneth nodded once. "Okay. Can I take a look at the money?" Tyrese handed over the envelope. Kenneth opened it carefully, like he was defusing a bomb, and began counting the bills right there at the counter. While he did, Margaret muttered, "I just thought we should be cautious. You never know these days." The words hit the air like a slap. Tyrese froze. He wasn't sure if he was supposed to say something. His stomach churned, but his feet stayed locked in place. It wasn't what she said, exactly. It was how she said it. Like he was a risk, a threat, a problem to be managed. Kenneth didn't respond to her. He finished counting, then looked at Tyrese. 220, correct? "Yes, sir." He nodded. "Okay, give me a minute. I'll verify the account." As Kenneth stepped away, Tyrese stood quietly, the envelope gone from his hands now. His throat felt tight. He didn't want to cry. Not here, not in front of strangers. He tried to remember what his mom always said. "You're not the problem, baby. You are the reason someone else gets to grow today." But right now, it didn't feel like anyone was learning anything. A woman a few spots behind in line looked like she might say something. She opened her mouth, then just looked at her phone instead. When Kenneth came back, he handed Tyrese the slip confirming the account and deposit total. "You're all set," he said. "It's gone through." "Thank you," Tyrese whispered. But as he turned to leave, Margaret added under her breath, "Better safe than sorry." It wasn't loud, but loud enough. Tyrese stopped walking. His ears were hot again. He wanted to leave, but also wanted to say something, anything. Instead, he just turned back toward the exit, swallowing everything he couldn't express. But outside those doors, a pair of eyes had been watching, and they weren't about to stay silent any longer. The glass door opened slowly, and in walked a woman whose presence made the air shift without a word. Dr. Alicia Monroe didn't need to speak to be noticed. Her blazer was crisp, slate blue with subtle pinstripes, and her heels clacked across the polished floor with authority. Alicia was the kind of woman who moved like time belonged to her, not the other way around. Heads turned, some out of curiosity, others out of instinct. But she wasn't here for attention. She was here for her son. Tyrese saw her the moment she stepped in. His shoulders tensed, not out of fear, but something closer to relief. Like the moment you finally find the handle on a locked door. Margaret looked up. Her expression tightened, just for a second, as if she already knew. Alicia didn't approach the counter right away. She walked directly to her son, placed one hand gently on his back, and looked him straight in the eyes. "You okay?" she asked, low enough for only him to hear. Tyrese nodded, but not really. She didn't press. Instead, she turned to the counter, locking eyes with Margaret, then Kenneth, who had returned to the scene, sensing something had changed. "Good morning," Alicia said, her voice clear and even. "I'm Dr. Alicia Monroe. Tyrese is my son." Kenneth cleared his throat and offered a quick, formal smile. Yes, ma'am. Everything's taken care of. His deposit's been processed. That's not what I'm here to talk about, she replied. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. But every word cut through the quiet. I watched my son walk in here on his own today, proud and ready to do something adults always say children should. Be responsible. And instead of being guided, he was questioned, doubted, and humiliated. Margaret's face flushed. Ma'am, I was just following protocol. Your protocol doesn't include accusing a child of suspicious behavior because he came in with cash on his birthday. Kenneth stepped in quickly. Dr. Monroe, I assure you that wasn't our intention. Alicia turned slightly, her hands still calm at her sides. Do you know how many accounts my company holds with this bank, Mr. Flores? Kenneth shifted. I believe 3. Langford Innovations, your personal, and Monroe Education Group. Correct, she said. And I've personally trained over 300 young students in this city about financial literacy, most of them black and brown, most of them entering institutions where they're immediately sized up before being seen. So no, I'm not new to this conversation. A silence fell over the lobby. Even the toddler from earlier had gone quiet. Margaret opened her mouth to respond, but Alicia held up a hand, not to silence her, but to pause the moment. This isn't just about Tyrese, she continued. It's about every child who walks into a place like this and gets told, silently or directly, that they don't belong, that they need to prove something no one else is being asked to prove. Do you ask every child for state ID, or just mine? Margaret's voice dropped. That's not fair. It's not fair to put that pressure on a 12-year-old just because you assume something about him before he even says hello. Alicia stepped back and motioned toward her son. He walked in here doing exactly what we're told to teach our children. And instead of being seen for his effort, he was treated like a threat. The older couple in the waiting area exchanged glances. One of them gave a slow nod. Not everyone looked comfortable, but they looked awake. Tyrese watched his mom, wide-eyed, not just because of what she was saying, but because of how she said it. Steady, measured. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't asking for pity. She was telling the truth in front of people who had to sit in it. I'm not asking for an apology, Alicia said at last. I'm asking for awareness. But even as the weight of her words settled in, Tyrese hadn't said a thing, because something inside him still needed to finish what he started. For a moment, no one moved. Kenneth stood stiffly behind the counter, his hands clasped in front of him like a school principal mid-lecture. Margaret's eyes were down now, fixed on the laminated calendar near her keyboard. The branch had gone quiet, quieter than it had any right to be. But Tyrese wasn't paying attention to any of that. He was still looking at his mom. She hadn't raised her voice. She didn't need to. There was something about the way she carried herself. Like every word she chose was a brick placed on purpose. He knew she was angry. He could feel it in the tension in her shoulders. But more than that, she was protective, steady, unshakable. It made him want to be the same. Tyrese, she said, turning slightly. Would you like to say anything? He hesitated. He hadn't expected her to ask. He thought she'd handle it like she always did, shielding him, fixing things so he wouldn't have to. But now, she was giving him a choice. He looked around at the grown-ups behind the counter, looked at the woman who had treated him like he didn't belong. Then he looked back at his mom, who was standing there like a wall between him and the part of the world that still didn't know how to treat him. He took a breath. I came in here to do what grown-ups told me I should do, he said. His voice cracked just a little, but he didn't stop. Save my money. Handle it myself. Be responsible. His hand tightened around the empty envelope still folded in his pocket. I didn't expect a celebration or anything, he continued. But I didn't expect to be treated like a problem. Margaret glanced up at him now. Her eyes weren't as hard as before. I had all my stuff, my account info, my school ID, and I was calm the whole time, even when I didn't understand why I was being treated different. He didn't say, because I'm black. He didn't need to. The room had already drawn that conclusion. I just wanted to put my money in the bank, Tyrese finished. That's all. He looked at Kenneth. I don't want anyone else to feel like that. Not in a place where people are supposed to help you. Kenneth nodded slowly. You're right. And I'm sorry you were made to feel that way. Alicia raised her chin slightly, listening. We should have done better, he added. Margaret, still quiet, finally spoke up. I misread the situation. I did. And I'm sorry, Tyrese. Her tone was less defensive now, not quite humbled, but closer to something real. Whether it came from guilt or realization, no one could be sure. But at least she said it. Alicia didn't reply right away. She turned to Tyrese again. You ready? She asked. He gave a tiny nod. Not yet. Kenneth looked confused. Was there something else we can do? Tyrese turned back toward the counter. Can I make the deposit again? There was a beat of silence. Alicia smiled. Just a little. Kenneth chuckled under his breath. Well, it's already been processed, but we can walk through it again. Symbolically, Tyrese stepped forward and pulled out the blue bank booklet. I want to do it myself, all the way. Kenneth took the booklet and grabbed a fresh deposit slip. Go ahead and fill this one out. Tyrese took the pen. Wrote slowly. Clearly. No shaking now. He handed it over and Kenneth stamped it, even though it wouldn't actually do anything. But in that moment, it wasn't about numbers in a system, it was about reclaiming something that should have never been taken. Margaret watched in silence as Tyrese picked up the slip, folded it into his booklet, and turned back toward his mom. All done, he said. Let's go, Alicia replied. But her eyes lingered just a second longer. On Margaret, then Kenneth, then the young man her son was quickly becoming. But outside, as they stepped into the sharp Arizona sunlight, something was still sitting heavy between them. Something that needed to be said before they drove away. The parking lot was half full, the kind of midday lull where heat shimmered above windshields and conversations drifted from open windows. But inside the Monroe sedan, it was still. Alicia closed the driver's side door gently. Tyrese buckled his seatbelt, then stared out the window for a few quiet seconds. The building looked different now, smaller, less intimidating. But the tightness in his chest hadn't fully left. Want to talk about it? She asked softly. He didn't answer right away. Then, why'd she look at me like that? Alicia didn't rush her answer. She leaned back in her seat and took a breath, like she'd answered this question before, but never quite like this. Because she made a decision about who you were before you said a word. That's not fair. No, she said. It's not. Tyrese looked down at the envelope again. Still empty, still folded perfectly. I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't, she said. But sometimes the world reacts to who it thinks you are, not who you actually are. Tyrese was quiet. Then, do you think she would have asked for all that if I was a white kid? Alicia's jaw tensed slightly. Not with anger, more like pain she'd learned to carry so well it didn't always show. No, she said. Probably not. They sat with that truth for a while. It didn't feel good. It wasn't supposed to, but it was honest. I didn't know what to say in there. Tyrese mumbled. I felt like if I got upset, it would just make it worse. Alicia turned toward him. You did exactly what you were supposed to. You stayed calm. You spoke up when you were ready, and you told the truth. Tyrese met her eyes. You weren't mad I didn't say anything at first. She shook her head. No, I was proud of you. I am proud of you. He nodded slowly. The tension in his shoulders started to fade a little. Alicia adjusted her seatbelt and looked straight ahead. This is why I push you. Why I expect so much. Not because you need to be perfect, but because sometimes that's what people expect just for you to be equal. I hate that. I know. Me too. A beat passed. I wanted her to feel embarrassed, Tyrese said. I wanted her to feel small. I get that, she said. But the goal isn't to shrink people down. It's to open their eyes. Let them carry what they've done so they can choose to do better next time. But what if they don't? Then that's on them, not on you. Tyrese leaned his head back against the seat. She didn't say sorry until you showed up. Alicia looked at her son, her voice low. Sometimes people only act right when they realize the person they're looking down on has power. It's not right, but it happens. She should have treated me right from the start. Exactly. They sat in silence for a bit longer. A car pulled in 2 spots down, and a woman stepped out with a boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, holding a plastic coin bank in his hands. Alicia smiled faintly. See that? Someone else trying to teach their child how to handle money. Tyrese looked out the window. I hope he doesn't get treated like I did. I hope someone like you is there when he walks in. That made Tyrese smile for the first time all day. He looked at his mum again. Do you think I made a difference today? Alicia paused. I think you did something most people wouldn't have. You walked in there with pride. You walked out with your dignity. And along the way you forced people to look at themselves. He stared back at the building. Next time I go, I want to go alone again. Alicia grinned. Good, you should. But as she turned the key in the ignition, there was still one more thing Tyrese needed to understand. Something she'd been holding in since the moment he stepped inside that bank. The car hummed softly as Alicia turned the key, but she didn't pull out of the space right away. Her hand rested on the gear shift, fingers still for a moment. There's something I didn't tell you, she said, eyes forward. Tyrese looked over. About what? About that bank. About Margaret. He waited. I've been there before, she said. A few months ago. I was opening a secondary business account and she was the one who helped me. Tyrese blinked. Seriously? She wasn't rude, but she wasn't warm either. I remember thinking she was distant, like she had somewhere more important to be. I chalked it up to a bad day. He frowned. So you already knew how she was? Alicia nodded. I had a feeling, but I didn't expect you to be the one who'd get the worst of it. Tyrese looked out the window again, his jaw tight. You think she does that to other kids? I don't know, Alicia said. But I know what bias looks like when it hides behind a smile, or a lack of one. Tyrese leaned back into his seat. He wasn't mad at his mom, just mad at the weight of it all, at how complicated something so simple had become. I don't get it, he muttered. People always say to do the right thing. Save your money. Be polite. Show up early. And then this happens. Alicia looked over at him. That's because doing the right thing doesn't always mean you'll be treated right. But it does mean you're building something no one can take away. What's that? Character and memory. The kind that sticks with you so when someone else's kid goes through it, you'll know exactly what to do. He didn't speak for a second. Then, so, this isn't the last time this kind of thing will happen? Alicia shook her head slowly. Probably not. Tyrese exhaled hard through his nose. Great. She smiled gently. But next time, it won't hit the same. You'll be ready. And maybe the people around you will be better too, because you forced them to see something they didn't want to. He turned the envelope in his hands again, unfolding and folding it like origami. Then he said, I still want to do it for real. The deposit. You already did, she said, glancing at the booklet in his lap. No. I mean, go back another day. Walk in. Fill out the slip. Give it to someone who treats me right. Alicia's smile deepened. You want a redo. I want to end it right. He said it without hesitation. Alicia nodded slowly. We'll do that on your time. Tyrese sat up straighter now. And when I do, I'm not going to second-guess myself. I'll walk in like I belong, because you do belong, she said. You always have. Don't let one moment make you shrink. He thought about that for a second. Then he opened the glove box, tucked the envelope inside, and closed it with finality. No point holding on to something empty. She raised an eyebrow. You sure? Yeah, I think I just made the most valuable deposit already. She laughed. Not loudly, but the kind that comes from the center of your chest. You really are your father's son, she said. Tyrese grinned. You say that when I'm being clever. I say that when you're being wise. They pulled out of the lot slowly, the bank growing smaller in the rear view. As the car turned onto the main road, Tyrese glanced down at the deposit booklet one last time before sliding it into his backpack. The numbers were there. But what mattered most wasn't on paper. It was what he'd gained without ever touching $1. But before the day ended, Tyrese had one last thing to say, and it was the kind of truth that doesn't come from a textbook or a lecture. They were halfway home when Tyrese spoke again. His voice was calm, but something in the way he said it made Alicia glance over. "You ever feel tired of having to prove something every time you walk in a room?" She didn't answer right away. The road ahead was flat and open, the Arizona sun casting sharp lines across the dashboard. She knew better than to give a quick response to a question like that. "All the time," she said. "More times than I can count." Tyrese looked down at his hands. "I didn't even do anything wrong, but it felt like I had to defend myself just to make a deposit." "You did," she said. "And that's what makes you dangerous, in the best way, because you walked in there with truth and left with your pride. You didn't let them chip away at it." He was quiet for a while. Then, "I just don't want to be angry all the time." "You don't have to be," she replied. "Anger's not the goal. It's the warning light. What you do after that is what matters." Tyrese tilted his head. "So what do I do with it?" "You carry it the right way. Let it sharpen you, not harden you." He nodded, like he was still turning that over. Alicia pulled into a gas station, needing to grab a bottle of water before they finished the drive. As she stepped out of the car, she tossed her keys gently into Tyrese's lap. "Lock the doors if you need to. I won't be long." She disappeared into the store, and for the first time that day, Tyrese was alone again, this time with nothing but his thoughts. He looked down at the keys, then back at the parking lot. It wasn't about the bank anymore. It was about the way people saw him before he even got a chance to speak. About how his mom had fought battles he didn't even know existed until today. And about how, somehow, it was now his responsibility to walk a little taller, to carry a little more, even when it wasn't fair. The car door creaked as Alicia returned with a cold bottle of water. She handed it to him without a word, slid back into the driver's seat, and buckled up. Tyrese twisted the cap and took a sip. "You know," he said, setting the bottle down, "I think the hardest part wasn't her asking all those questions. It was the look on her face, like I didn't even deserve to be there." Alicia nodded slowly. "That's how they try to make you disappear," she said. "Not with words, with doubt, with silence, with that look." "But I didn't disappear," he said, voice stronger now. "No, you didn't." She reached over and gave his hand a quick squeeze. "And you won't. Not now. Not ever." They drove the rest of the way home without saying much, but it was the kind of quiet that felt full, not empty. As they pulled into the driveway, Tyrese leaned forward and looked at her. "Can I say one more thing?" Alicia smiled. "Always. I'm not just going to remember how they treated me," he said. "I'm going to remember how I responded." "That's the lesson," she said. "That's what makes you unstoppable." Tyrese opened the door, grabbed his backpack, and paused. "I think next time," he said, "I'll bring someone else with me, like Jordan or Micah. Teach them how to handle it too." Alicia's face lit up. "That's what leaders do," she said. Tyrese gave a small, confident nod. "Then I guess I'm a leader now." He stepped out into the sun. And this time, his footsteps didn't sound nervous or unsure. They sounded like someone who knew exactly where he was going. If this story moved you, even a little, don't just scroll past. Share it. Talk about it. Because every kid like Tyrese deserves to walk into the world with their head held high. And if you're still with us, hit subscribe. There's more to tell.